For me, if I'm coming out to the analog world, I'm not there for boatloads of VCAs and a bunch of crap in the path. I want purity of tone. That's the reason why I've landed on the 5059 and now the 5057, because I get the tone that I'm used to, the thing that I want in terms of just the sonic texture and the transformer drive, but I can work a lot quicker because I'm not doing a massive recall on a huge console. Hi, I'm Danny Reisch. We're here at my studio in Lockhart, Texas. Good Danny's, and we're going to take a look at the new Rupert Neve Designs 5057 Orbit summing mixer today. I started mixing on the 5059 satellite about 10 years ago when I moved away from mixing on large format consoles. The form factor of being able to just use a much smaller piece of gear that still lets me get all the analog mojo I want and throw all my analog toys on a mix is clutch for recalls and for my workflow now. Moving to the 5057 was interesting because there's less pans, there's less switches, there's a little bit less to be mindful of in terms of recalls, and it's a little more set and forget, which I like. Being able to recall mixes weeks later, months later, sometimes years later has become incredibly important. I can't try to do entire console recalls on every mix that needs a tweak. It's just exhausting and it eats my lunch in terms of my schedule. I just don't have time to do that. For me, I just love that the 5057 is the absolute most streamlined version of the summing amp workflow. My favorite feature with the 5057 is the -6 dB out. We mix at pretty hot levels these days, and transformers sound good when you hit them hard is basically what it comes down to. I can control exactly how hard I'm driving that output transformer and not shred every piece of gear downstream. My mix workflow typically would be converters feed the 5057. I either have analog inserts between the converter and the 5057, or I've got hardware inserts in Pro Tools that are feeding the 5057. I generally have stereo bus compressors on my instrument subgroups, and then the output of the 5057 will feed a somewhat extensive but always changing 2-bus chain before it goes back in the box. The reason why the summing amp workflow works for me is because of how streamlined it is, because I can integrate my digital world and all of my analog toys into one workflow. I can work fast and my recalls are dead on. I'm old school in that I came up working on tape and consoles, and I like the sound of transformers. I just do. It's tubes and transformers and tape. Those are a huge part of how I stylize, how I shape, it's part of my sound. So for me, having access to something like Rupert Neve quality sonics in a 1U box that I can kind of just mix through and forget is there is the perfect workflow for the modern age.